Hi everybody, my name is Claire, and today I will be talking about two different school shootings across a decade, comparing the 1999 Columbine shooting with the 2012 Sandy Hook school shooting. First, I'll go through a summary of both events and how they were managed. Then we'll talk about human impact and the physical and emotional implications in the short term and the long term of school shootings. We'll talk about the business impact, which is the financial aspect for the schools, family, and community. And then we'll talk about the lessons learned and the legacies and what has changed since both shootings. So for Columbine, it happened April 20th, 1999. There were two shooters who shot and killed 13 people around the school and wounded 24. The first shots occurred at 11:19 a.m. and the gunmen killed themselves by 12:08 p.m. The all clear was given at 4:30 p.m. Sandy Hook occurred in 2012. There was only one shooter. He killed 26 people in two classrooms and wounded two. The first shots occurred at 9:34 a.m. and the gunman killed himself by 9:40 a.m. when the police were closing in on him. The victims report hiding for over 4 hours. The preparation for Columbine, in short, was there wasn't really a plan or preparation. It was not popular at the time to do drills or exercises around crisis situations, as they didn't happen in such large magnitudes very often. The students thought that it was a prank or firecrackers or someone was filming a video, and they didn't understand the severity of the event. It turned into chaos as students were running, trying to hide, and teachers were slamming doors on students and not letting them in. Sandy Hook was a very different story. Connecticut has mandatory practice drills in place now and then, and Sandy Hook had done an exercise recently, so teachers jumped into action on the day of. The communication for Columbine was mainly consisting of cell phones and radio signals. There were many 911 calls, but they were very jumbled because there were so many coming from the school, and it was very confusing to know where the shooters were and how many shooters there were. There was also poor signal for the cell phones and radio, so they brought in portable cell towers to help increase the signals. There was a fire alarm inside the school. The event was broadcasted on TV media, and they also sent faxes back and forth from the stations to nearby information stations. For Sandy Hook, it happened in a much more digital age. The announcement was broadcasted to individual classrooms. Parents were notified via automated phones and emails and texts when they went into lockdown, and then with more information after the fact. And TV also broadcasted, and radio broadcasted on stations, letting people know the facts and how to find their kids at the fire station. The National Incident Management System, the 14 characteristics, I didn't want to go over all 14, but I wanted to look at a few that I felt both did very well. Both had a strong incident command structure and modular organization. The dispatch and deployment, they had multiple shifts and they were deployed when they were needed. They both had multiple facilities and location for staging, triage, and incident command posts. They had multiple different ways of communication and ways to strengthen those communication methods, and both had a strong chain of command with a clear ordered hierarchy and a strong ICS. The core capabilities and mission areas are very similar between the two of them. Prevention then and now is not very much for school shooters. We mainly focus on what to do and how to react. There was not very much security in both situations. The Sandy Hook shooter shot through a locked glass door to gain entry into the building. Both shootings, the victims were hiding in locked rooms and they were fleeing. The response time for Columbine was much slower by law enforcement, EMS, and fire. In Sandy Hook, it was much faster. The recovery was similar with school closures, counseling, and mental health services. Columbine rebuilt their cafeteria, and they built a new library and named it the Hope Library. And Sandy Hook rebuilt the entire school with increased security measures. The decisions made in Columbine, in general, were slow. The police entered the school at 12:06 when the shots started at 11:19, and the gunmen were dead by 12:08. They focused on evacuating and searching students over finding the gunmen, and it took them a long time to reach the injured people. The SWAT team was very last minute and makeshift and had inadequate equipment, and they had never worked together. The media decided to portray the shooters as strange outcasts who were bullied, which was not true, which led to mistrust and dangerous misconceptions of what a school shooter would actually look like. The decisions in Sandy Hook were much faster as they were a lot more prepared for this type of situation. The shots started at 9:34 a.m. and the police entered at 9:39, and the gunman was dead by 9:40 a.m. They utilized a police dog, a bomb squad, and a helicopter. Much faster because the police had been able to witness the gunman's suicide, so they were able to declare him no longer a threat. However, there were a lot of inconsistencies in the media and the reports, which caused a lot of distrust with the community and, unfortunately, a lot of conspiracy theories. The human impact for both were a significant loss of life and injuries, a lot of emotional trauma, physical, general health well-being problems that come from trauma, which can lead to absences, grade repetition, switching schools, disciplinary action, which can lead to a decrease in high school and college graduation, which ultimately can lead to a reduction in annual earnings. For Columbine specifically, it re-exposes their trauma with their children. Every time their kids go to school and have a school lockdown exercise, it triggers that fear in them. In Sandy Hook specifically, because it was such a digital age when it occurred, a lot of these young children had a lot of media exposure, and the mass media kept showing the shooting over and over disproportionately, which makes it look like these school shootings are a lot more likely to happen and just causes general mass public concern. The financial impacts, both schools were closed and they had to move students around to different schools. Studies show that gun victim school shooting survivors can lose $100,000 a year in wages over time, and it causes an increase in antidepressants and medical psychiatric care, which can be a huge financial burden on the families. There were many lawsuits in Columbine against the families, gun suppliers, school, and sheriff's department, and it was $50 million for the counseling and the rebuilding of the school. Sandy Hook also had a lot of lawsuits, one of the big ones being against Remington, the gun maker, for $73 million, and it was also $50 million to rebuild the new school. The legacy for Columbine is just increased awareness, mainly there increased drills and legislation, more attention to mental health and bullying, more training and school security for staff, and a higher standardization of communication and abilities for events like this. Also with communication, Sandy Hook, the principal is typically relied on as the person to activate the crisis systems. However, unfortunately, the principal died first in the attack, so communication just lagged from there. They learned that we need to correct the media so conspiracy theories do not occur. They had a hard time communicating and directing parents because it was chaos, and there were many legislature proposals after Sandy Hook. I also wanted to put a picture of the victims because I think it's really important to think about who was actually involved and not get too caught up in the event itself and the timelines, and to look at the people that were able to change legislature and policies to keep horrible events like this from happening again. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email or give me a phone call or send me a text. I also want to thank SlidesGo, the creator of the template for this presentation. And these are my sources. Thank you.